Okay, so here we're going to look at Leaving Cert Exam 2018 Maths Paper 1 Ordinary Level. So the first question we have is just on a bit of financial arithmetic. So it says, when Sean joined the sales company, he was offered a choice of two different salary contracts. The details of the contracts are outlined in the table below. Find out how much Sean would earn under each contract in a year where his total sales were 400,000. Okay, so his salary in both of them and his commission in both of them as well. So the first thing we look at is he gets his salary of 35,000 in contract A, plus he gets his sales of 400,000 at 2%. In contract B, he gets his salary of 30,000 plus his sales of 400,000 at 3%. Okay, so how do that in the calculator? Firstly, I get my 35,000 plus 400,000 multiplied by 2%. That's 43,000. Calculate contract B, is that 30,000 plus 400,000 at 3%. Remember, hit the shift for your percentage button. That's 42,000. So we can see from there, from that question, contract A would be worth more. Another employee, Mary, earns 50,000 in a particular year. She's on contract A. Find her total sales for the year. Okay, so if she earns 50,000 in a particular year and she's also on contract A, well, we can assume then she's on the salary of 35,000. So we just need to find her sales. So take that away from the salary. And that will leave 15,000. Now I'd advise do that in your calculator. So 15,000. To work backwards, I can divide this instead of multiplying by 2%. So 15,000 divided by 0.02 is equal to 750,000. Last question says, find this total sales for which a salesperson would earn the same amount of money under each contract. Okay, so find the total sales for which a salesperson would earn the same amount of money under each contract. Okay, so the first thing I'd do is I'd have to get my 35,000. Okay, now you can add on your 0.02x. That means your 2% of whatever the sales were, and we'll let sales be your variable here, which is equal to x. So if we let that equal to 30,000 and let it equal to the 3%, so 0.03x. Okay, so if I bring my my 0.03x over here, or I can actually bring the 0.02x to the other side, just to make it a bit easier. So that's 35,000. I'll bring this over here. Remember the rule with algebra. When you bring one value to one side of the equation, it changes. So it'll be 0.03x. And I'll bring this over here and that'll become a negative. So that's minus 0.02x. So that means x then, that'll be 5,000, which is equal to 0.02 0.01x, divide both sides by 0.01, 0.01, and 5,000 divided by that will give 500,000. Okay, so question 2 then is on complex numbers. So this is one of the key components of any complex numbers. I squared is equal to -1. So plot Z1, Z2 and Z3 on the Argand diagram, label each point clearly. Okay, so this is your real axis there, and this is your imaginary axis there. So the first component of your complex number is real, the second part is imaginary. So Z1 is -2 here on the real, and it's 3i on the imaginary. So that's Z1. Z2 is -3 and -2i on the imaginary. So that is Z2. And Z3 then is equal to Z1 minus Z2. So a small calculation to do here. So Z3 is equal to Z1 minus Z2. So that is equal to -2 plus 3i minus Z2, which is -3 minus 2i. So I'll have my -2 plus 3i, and because you have a negative in front of these, that'll become +3 and that'll become +2i. I'll add my like terms. So you have the -2 and the 3, which will leave a 1. You have 3i and 2i, which will leave 1 plus 5i. So 1 in the real and 5 in the imaginary. That is Z3. So next then what we want to do is investigate if Z3, the absolute value of Z3, is equal to Z1 plus Z2. Okay, so again, so Z3, so to get the absolute value of that, so Z3 is 1 plus 5i, and that is equal to the absolute value of -2 plus 3i plus -3 minus 2i. Okay. Now for this question, I don't leave a lot of room here, but I'll simplify it. So that's 1 squared. So when you get the absolute value, you always drop the I. Make sure to bring that out. Is it equal to -2 squared plus 3 squared and -3 squared minus 2 squared? Okay, so 1 squared will leave me with 1, and 5 squared will leave me with 25. That's the square root of 26. Is that equal to? So that will be 4 plus 9, which is 13. Again, 9 and 4 will also leave me with 13. Okay, the square root of 26 is not equal to the square root of 13 and square root of 13, because if I, let's say for example, if I get the square root of 23, that will leave me with that, which is roughly about 4.79, 4.8. If I have the square root of 13 plus the square root of 13, that's equal to 2 times the square root of 13, which is 7.2. So they are not equal. Conclusion, not equal. Last part here then is Z4 equal to Z1 over Z2? Okay. So what I have to do here is Z4, so let's get Z1 first. It's -2 plus 3i over -3 minus 2i. So here you have to multiply by what's called the conjugate. The conjugate is the same thing as the bottom part of your fraction, which is -3, and you change the middle sign to plus 2i. And you do the same here as well, -3 plus 2i, and you multiply them out then. So -2 plus 3i times -3 plus 2i -3 minus 2i times -3 plus 2i. minus 2 by minus 3 is 6. Minus 2 by plus 2i will give me minus 4i. 3i by minus 3 is minus 9i. And 3i by 2i is plus 6i squared. Minus 3 by minus 3 is 9. Minus 3 by plus 2i is minus 6i. Minus 2i by minus 3 is plus 6i. And minus 2 by plus 2i is minus 4i squared. To note, these two will always cancel. If they don't cancel, you've done a mistake somewhere. So I'll just bring this up here. That leaves me with 6 minus 4i minus 9i. At this point here, just remember that I squared is equal to minus 1. So I squared is equal to minus 1. And I'll just substitute I squared for minus 1. So that's plus 6 times minus 1 all over 9 minus 4. Again, I can substitute here for minus 1. So that is 6 minus 13i. And that will give me minus 6. 9 minus 4 by minus 1 will leave me with plus 4. And that is equal to, these cancel, minus 13i over 13, which leaves me with minus I. Now, just to bear in mind as well, if I look here, this is important, you write z form in the form of x plus yi. X in this case being 0, and y being minus 1i. Now we have question 3, it's a bit of algebra. Solve the equation 2x squared minus 7x minus 3 equal to 0. Give each answer correct to 2 different places. So when you see this here, okay, it means you can use your minus b formula. Now just to note, you can always use the minus b formula, but when you see the 2 decimal places, it means you have to use it, okay, so there's no getting away from it. Now just to note as well, when you look at your log tables as well, go to algebra, it's on page 20. And here you will find your minus b formula. So x is equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. First thing you do then is you write out a is equal to 2, that's the 2 there. B is equal to minus 7, C is equal to minus 3. Okay, so we have minus B plus minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A, okay? Now, people make the mistake sometimes that for some reason they stop the fraction here and they say minus B plus or minus, and then they say all of this over 2A. It's not, the whole lot is over 2A. Just be careful with that. So here are substitutions. We have minus 7, which is 7, plus or minus the square root of B squared, which is minus 7 squared, minus 4, A is 2, and C is minus 3. All of it over 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, so at this point now I can split it up into 2 different roots. So I can say our 2 different values, 7 plus the square root of, now at this point, let's keep it simple, minus 7 squared minus 4 times 2 minus 3 all over 4. Okay, so I'll just calculate that, so into your calculator. Okay, so I'll just use my fraction button here, it's my fraction button, and I will have 7 plus the square root of brackets minus 7 to be squared minus 4 bracket 2 bracket minus 3, and it's all over 4. Okay, so just be careful there as well, just to ensure that you have it all over 4. Okay, so I can see here is the 2 decimal places, it's equal to 3.89. And again, this time now, because I have 2 parts, I'll do 7 minus this time, the same again, minus 7 squared, minus 4 bracket 2 bracket minus 3 or 4. Okay, same again. Now I actually made this a bit longer for myself. I could have just went back in the previous fraction and changed that to minus, but I'll just do it again just to ensure people understand how we substitute it for the formula. So it's minus 7 squared minus 4 times 2 times minus 3 all over 4. And then that is equal to, change it to decimal, and it is minus 0.386. 2 decimal places, then that would be 0.3, and because there's a 6 there, I'll round up to 0.39. So my 2 values are the 0.39 and the 3.89. So the next part then is solving a simultaneous equation. Okay, so I'll just rewrite it out again. So I'll have my 2a plus 3b is equal to 15. 5a plus b is equal to minus 8. Now, there's no, when you're doing these equations like that, there's no rule to say that you have to do the a's first or the b's first. Okay, do whichever one is easier. Now, I can see if I multiply this line by minus 3, I'll get a minus 3b and they'll cancel. Instead of having to multiply this by 2 and this by 5, minus 5, just try and multiply one line, it's easier that way. So because we've no operation for the top line, it stays the same. And minus 3 by minus 15a, minus 3b. I'm breaking a rule here myself, I'm not using the calculator, but in the exam, ensure to use it, okay? Even for simple equations like this, the 3b and minus 3 will cancel. It's minus 13a is equal to 39. Okay, so whatever is in front of the a, we'll divide by that. That's minus 13. I'll balance the equation, I'll do the same here. They cancel, a is equal to minus 3. I can substitute that in because I know now at this stage a is equal to minus 3, so I can take any one of these equations. The bottom one looks easier. 5a plus b is equal to minus 8. Substitute the a for the minus 3 plus b equals minus 8. 5 times minus 3 is minus 15 plus b equals minus 8. b is equal to minus 8. I'll move this to this side of the equation, and when that happens, you change the sign. B equals 7. Just one thing to note as well, if you ever want to check our answers to ensure they're correct, again, you know that a equals minus 3 and b equals 7. Just say I take the bottom one again, just for example. I said, well, does 5 times a and plus a b equal minus 8? Well, 5 times minus 3 plus 7, does that equal minus 8? Well, if I have minus 15 and I have plus 7, does that equal minus 8? It does, because 7 and minus 15 will give me minus 8. They equal each other. That means they're both correct. Incidentally, you actually do the same with your x components there. It's a bit more complicated. Okay, so question 4, we have sequences and series. So here we see we have 4 blocks. Okay, so that's 2 by 2, we have 3 by 3 and 4 by 4. Okay, so even before I look at that, I can see that's 2 squared, that's 3 squared, that's 4 squared. So the next one would be 5 squared. Okay, you don't have to, in terms of your measurements, it doesn't have to be, you know, very particular. Like, so let's do 5 centimeters like that. Another 5 like that. Okay, so I'm going up again. Just make sure it's relatively straight. Again, there's no marks for your drawing in this at all. It's just that you get the correct pattern and you can illustrate it. Okay, so that's 5 squared, okay? And you can just roughly draw the 2 extra then on this, okay? So there, that's the pattern that we have, okay? So it says then next, to fill in the patterns below. So in the first one we see, well, the number of grey tiles, and actually, sorry, just a point to note as well, just to make sure you shade in those as well. Just to illustrate that they are either the grey or shaded tiles. And there's no extra marks for artwork. You just have to show that you understand the pattern that's happening here. Okay, so that's 4, 9, so 2 squared, which is 4, 3 squared, which is 9, and again you just see it's just been squared. 2, that's that'll be 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared will give 16, and the 4th one then, which is stage 4, will give 25. 6 squared then will give 36. Okay. Number of white tiles every time will give us 2, okay? So it's 2 the whole time, that doesn't change. So that'll be 9 plus 2 is 11, 16 and 2 is 18, 25 and 2 is 27, 36 and 2 is 38. That is how to answer question 4A and B. So in part C then, it says here, assume the pattern continues, the total number of tiles in the stage n, Tn is given by the formula Tn is equal to n squared plus Bn plus C, where B and C are elements of a natural number. That means your natural number, okay. Find the values of B and C and the, find the value of B and the value of C, okay. So the first thing what I can do there is, when I said, well, what is it when n is equal to 1 and n is equal to 2? Okay, so if this is n squared plus bn plus c, so when n squared plus bn plus c, well, when n is equal to 1, I would have 1 squared plus b plus c, and that is equal to 6. And when n equals 2, I will have 2 squared plus 2b plus c equal to 11. Okay, so from that then I can say that b plus c is equal to 5, because I just moved the 1 over there. And I can also say that 2b plus c is equal to 11 minus 4, which is 7. Okay, from there then I can just multiply this line by minus 1, because I want to cancel the c, and I'll just move this up here. Okay, so a lot of these questions you actually sometimes run out of space, you have to be careful. But here I will have minus b minus c is equal to minus 5, 2b plus c is equal to 7, they cancel. I'll have b is equal to 2. Okay, so at that point then, if I know b is equal to c, I can sub it into one of these. So I'll just go b plus c, I know is equal to 5. Well, I'll sub the b in for 2. 2 plus c is equal to 5. c is equal to 5 minus 2, c equals 3. Okay, and I have my values for b and c. So next part of the question says find the number of stages which has 443 tiles in total. Okay, so if we go back here to n squared plus b n plus c, right? We know that b is equal to 2 and c is equal to 3. So therefore I can say n squared plus 2n plus c, which is 3, is equal to 443. If I get that from here. Okay, so I can say then, if I just move the 443 to this side, it'll become minus 443. That's equal to 0. Therefore, n squared plus 2n minus 440 is equal to 0. Okay. So at that point, then I can factorize. So if I factorize here at this point, okay, I can say that, well, n and n, that will be my n squared. I get the factors then of 440. Now, let me see, 440 divided by 20 will win 22 times. Okay, so if I have, now you can use your minus b formula for this as well. But if I say that I have plus 22 minus 20, therefore n plus 22 equals 0, n is equal to minus 22, n minus 20 equals 0, n equals 20. I can't have a negative value here. Can't have a negative step, so we rule it out, so n is equal to 20. So now question 5. So it says here that the diagram on the right shows the graph of a quadratic function f. Write down the coordinates of a, b, and c. So firstly, a, I can see it crosses the y-axis. Okay, because remember that is 0 on the x, so I cross that at 0, 6. Okay, whenever it crosses the y-axis, x is always 0 because that is an x is 0. And then for b, what I can see here, the roots of the equation, this is at minus 2 on x, and it's 0 on y. Likewise here, c is 3, 0. Okay, so the next question then says that show that the function can be written as minus x squared plus 6 minus, plus 6. I can just factorize here, okay? So just be careful here when you're not factorizing because that's a minus there. Okay, that sometimes throws people off. So, so the factors of x squared are x by x, but one of them has to be minus because minus x by x gives minus x squared. So then at this point then I'll have to find the factors of 6, and because because 2 by minus 3 will give me minus 6, but a minus 2 by a minus 3 will give me a plus 6 because this minus in here enables this to be minus x by x, which is minus x squared, and it gives a minus 2 by minus 3, which gives plus 6. The 2 in the x then will give me the 2x, and the minus x by the minus 3 will give me a plus 3x, which will leave me then with plus x in the middle. Okay, so that's the factors there. And the next question then says, shown using calculus that the maximum point of f of x is 0.506.25. Okay, so firstly, f of x is equal to minus x squared plus x plus 6. Okay, so if I get, again, this is important here, using calculus, that means differentiate. Okay, so if I differentiate this, I will get 2 by that is minus 2x, you drop one of the indices, differentiate x is just 1, okay, and you let it equal to 0, okay, because the maximum point is here and the tangent there to that slope is 0, okay. So when you find calculus, you're actually, or when you differentiate, you're actually finding the slope, okay. So the next thing then is minus 2x, I'll bring this across here, that's equal to minus 1, divide both sides by minus 2, that will cancel it to leave x, that'll leave 1 over 2, okay. So at that point then, so you have x equals 2, so at roughly around there, so that's when x is equal to half, that is when it's at its max, okay. So we need to find out exactly what that is. So if I sub in a half or 0.5 into the original function, I will get minus x squared plus x plus 6, so I'll get minus 0.5 squared plus 0.5 plus 6. So I have to do my calculator, minus 0.5 to be squared, make sure you put the squared in, plus 0.5 plus 6, and it's equal to 6.25. So what that's saying is the point, 0.5, 6.25 is the max. Okay, so more algebra, question 6. So we just have to solve for x. Okay, so you can see here that there's a bit of multiplication here, because in algebra brackets mean multiply. So I've x plus 5, 3x minus 4, minus 3, x squared plus 2, sorry, x squared plus 2, plus 4 is equal to 0. So x by 3x is 3x squared, x by minus 4 is minus 4x, 5 by 3x is plus 15x, and 5 by minus 4 is minus 20. Minus 3 by x squared is minus 3x squared, minus 3 by plus 2 is minus 6, and plus 4 equals 0. So I want to simplify here, okay, so I can see straight away these cancel. So it's my x's, so I have minus 4x plus 15x, add them together and you will get 11x, and then, so that's there, after there, a minus 20, minus 6 will give me minus 26, and plus 4 will give me minus 22 equal to 0. 11x, therefore, bring this across, becomes a plus 22, divide both sides by 11. You want to divide by or multiply by whatever in front of the x, that will be x equals 2. Okay, so next part of the question, then we have to find the solution. Okay, so we have algebraic fractions. Okay, so with those, okay, one of the first things I'll have to do is get myself a common denominator here. Okay, so if I, so let me see, I have 5 over x plus 3 minus 1 over x is equal to 1 over 2. Okay, so with these, if you don't have denominator the same, you would have to get what's called a common denominator. Okay, so here, if I get my common denominator, and I will say x plus 3 times x times 2. Okay, the reason why I do this, if you multiply them all, they automatically become a common denominator. So I have the 5 here, okay, but because that goes into that once, I'll also multiply by the x and the 2. Make sure to put your minus sign there. That goes into that once, so I'll have x, so I bring my 1 there, and then I'll have my x plus 3 and my 2. And lastly then, put an equal sign there, because the 2 goes into that once, you also have to multiply by the x plus 3 and the x. Okay, so 5x will give 5x, by 2 it will give 10x. Minus 1 by, okay, so it's a small bit of multiplication to do here. So if I have 2yx plus 3, that'll give me 2x plus 6. But if I have a minus before it, that'll give me minus 2x minus 6. That's equal to, okay, so the 1 will give x plus 3. It won't change anything here, but I have an x here as well. So it'll give x squared plus 3x all over x plus 3 by x by 2. Okay, so if I can simplify that a small bit, 8x minus 6 is equal to x squared plus 3x all over, I'll multiply the 2x by that to give 2x, and okay, so I'll move these across, so I'll have x squared plus 3x. I'll move the 8x across to give minus 8x, and the 6 to give plus 6 all over x plus 3 by 2x. Okay, so there's a small bit of sorting through there. Okay, so what I can do there is, if for example I can see that if I can add the 3x and the x, okay, so that's the next thing I'll do, x squared minus 5x plus 6. Okay, I can let that equal to 0, okay, because they have the same denominator anyway, so that won't make any difference. And I'll just make a bit of space myself. So x squared minus 5x plus 6. If I can factorize that, I can go x, and the factor that will give plus 3 minus 2. Because, sorry, my mistake. That's a minus. X minus 3, x minus 2. And they're the factors. Okay, so ensure that you let those equal to 0. X equals 3, x equals 2 are the two values. Okay, a bit of work in that, and it's a small bit messy, but if you can follow the logic for it, you should be fine. Okay, so we're on to section B, context and applications. Ensure don't leave anything blank on these questions. A lot of students do. So part of the seating arrangement in the theatre is shown on the diagram below. The seats are arranged in rows. Row 1 is the nearest the stage and has 28 seats. Each subsequent, that means each following row, behind that contains one more seat. So, so 20 seats. So row 1 has 28 seats. Row 2 has 29, and so on. And it says here, find the numbers of seats in row 10. Okay, so I've got 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 30, 31, 32, 33. Okay, come over here, 7, 8, 9, 10. So each time I'm deciding 1, 34, 35, 36, 37. So there's 37 seats in row 10. So part B, there are 50 seats in the last row. How many rows of seats are there in the theatre? Okay, so I'll use my formula here. Okay, so again, ensure to check your maths tables for sequences and series, and you're looking for a table of contents first. Okay, so look here, sequences and series, page 22. Okay, and I'm looking here at Tn, a plus n minus 1 times d. A being the first term, n is whichever nth term it is, minus 1 times d, which is the common difference. Okay, so if it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, for example, 2 being the common difference in that situation. So here then we have a plus n minus 1d. Okay, so in this case, I can let a, because that's the first term, equal to 28 n minus 1. The difference here every time is 1. Okay, so we're told it's equal to 50 seats. So what I can say in this case then is 28 plus n minus 1 times 1 is equal to 50. So if I multiply this out, I would have 28 plus n minus 1 equals 50. So that means then that 27 plus n equals 50. N is equal to 50 minus 27, because that 27 changes sign. Therefore, n equals 23. Okay, so now we look at part C. So it says find the total number of seats in a theatre. So this is really what you're looking for, is the sum of all of your series. So this is the arithmetic sequence or series. So we're going to use this formula here. S n is equal to n over 2 bracket 2a plus bracket n minus 1 bracket d. Okay, again, just to clarify, where a is the first term, d is the common difference. So you put in a formula. Okay, so this is actually a 10-mark question. So even if you have this formula down, you still get 3 marks. So I know in this case, we already know that n is equal to 23. We found that in the previous question. I know the difference every time is 1. Okay, because every time you go back a row, it's an extra seat. And I know that the first term is 28. Okay, so a being 28. So if I just substitute this into my calculator, I will get 23, or sorry, into my formula and then into my calculator. So 2a being 28 plus n being 23 minus 1. I'll simplify that. That's 22. I can do that there. Just to clarify, that's 23 minus 1, which is 22. The difference every time is 1. Okay, so you can keep it there if you want. It makes no difference. Okay, because the 1 is by 22 is still 22. So if I just put that into my calculator, so I'll just leave it here so you can see it. See, there we go. So bracket 23, that's your fraction button. It's important to know. 2 times 28 plus bracket 22 bracket times 1, and close my bracket then. Okay, so let's check my formula again. So 23 over 2, there might have been a small issue there with my formula, so 2 times 28, my bracket there. Okay, so plus 22 bracket 1 and close the bracket again. There we go. There may have been an issue with one of the brackets wasn't closed. Okay, so for example, if you have that bracket open there and you don't close it there, then you get an error in the calculator. So we get the answer there we get is 897. Okay, so we're now on to part D. Okay, so it says on a particular night 600 people are at a show in a theatre. Assume that people are seated only in the rows closest to the stage, i.e. they have filled the first n rows and there are some people seated in the next row. Find the value of n and find the number of people seated in the next row. So for this, again, I'll have to use my formula, but this time they're actually telling us the amount of people. So they're saying that they have n, which is 600. Sorry, my apologies. They have the total number of seats, but we've defined n. So what they're saying is then, that means that n over 2 bracket 2a plus n minus 1 bracket d is equal to 600. Okay, now this fraction here, okay, is causing a bit of bother. So what I'll do is I'll multiply both lines by 2, and then I'll get n times 2a plus bracket n minus 1d is equal to, and again, balanced equation, that's equal to 1200. So if I multiply this out then, and move everything to the left hand side, then I will get n squared plus 55n minus 1200. Just to explain that there. Okay, so I already know that, well, I will get n there anyway because I've multiplied this by 2, okay? And then I'll have 2a plus n minus 1d, okay? A being the first term, which is 28, we know that already. And that will give me 56 plus n minus 1d, okay? That's only a 1 there, so it's 56a plus n minus 1. So with minus 1 will make that 55n. Okay, so we're on to part E. So it says for a particular show, adult tickets cost 25 euros each and children's tickets cost 12 euros each. Find a total income from ticket sales if 276 adults and 212 tickets were sold. So just a small bit of calculation here. So if there is 276 adults tickets sold, so that would be 276 times, my bracket indicates multiply, by 25 euro. And, okay, so that's the adult tickets. Children's tickets then is 212 times 12 euro. Okay, so the children's tickets are a small bit cheaper. Okay, so 200, sorry, bracket 276, bracket 25 plus, again, the brackets, when you have two brackets beside each other, there's no operation between them, it means multiply. So 212 bracket 12, that is equal to 9,444 euros. Okay, so part F, for a different show, 752 tickets were sold. The ratio of adult tickets sold to children's tickets sold is 3:1. So that's a ratio here, okay? So it means for every 3 adult tickets that were sold, there was 1 children's ticket sold, okay? Find how many adult tickets and how many children's tickets were sold for that show, okay? So, as I said, that's a ratio. So the adult to child ratio, so the adult to child, it is 3:1. Okay, now when you have ratios like that, you get the ratio first, okay? So 3:1, that means for every 4 tickets, you have 3 adult, 1 child. So if there's 752, we'll divide 752, so we'll take it divided by 4. 752 divided by 4, 188. Okay, so again, so this means then for every 4, if you divide the 752 by 4, it's 188. Okay, so if I multiply this by 3, that'll give me the adult tickets. 188 by 3, 564. Okay, and there's 2 ways that you could do the last one then. You could either take the 752 and take it away from the 564, or get the 188 and it's multiplied by 1, which would give you the 188. So 564 and 188. The key thing there is in your ratios, you get the ratio first. Okay, so even just say if it was 5 to 2, you'd add the 5 and 2, you get 7, and you multiply then by the 5 to get the adults and the 2 to get the child. Okay. Okay, so now we have part 2 of F. For the show referred to in part FI, so this is this question here they're referring to, an adult cost 2.5 times as much as a children's ticket. The income was 17,000. This we should have a comma there, 578. Find the cost of a children's ticket for the show. Okay, so we don't know what this is. So in algebra, you'd let that equal x. It's a variable. Okay, so the children's ticket, let it equal to x. And it says here that the adult ticket costs 2.5 times this. Well, if the adult ticket costs 2 times that, then it will be equal to 2.5 times x. Okay, so what we know is that if we go back here, I know that there was 188 tickets sold, and each children ticket is equal to x. And I also know that there was 564 adult tickets sold, okay, times 2.5x. In algebra, the great thing about algebra is if you have an unknown value, you can let it equal x. It's what's called a variable. So if we let this equal to, so we know times this is equal to this here, which is 17,578. So if I just bring this down and let's multiply my 564 by 2.5. Okay, so in your calculator, you can't use the x, but you can use the constant in front of it and add in the x then. Plus 1410x, and that is equal to 17,578. So I'll just clean this up a small bit. 1410x is equal to, sorry, my mistake. I'll just actually add these together. So 598x. So again, whatever's in front of the x, you divide by that, and you do the same with the other side to balance the equation. They'll cancel. X is equal to 11. And that is how to find the cost of a children's ticket. And just be sure as well to put your value in there. Okay, so now we're on to question 8. So we can see here we have a function question here. So it says the amount in appropriate units of a certain medicinal drug in the bloodstream at t hours after it has been taken can be estimated by the function. C is a function of t is equal to minus t cubed plus 4.5t squared plus 54t, where t is less than or equal to 9 but greater than or equal to 0, and t is an element of a real number. Use the drug amount function c of t to show that the amount of the drug in the bloodstream 4 hours after the drug has been taken is 224 units. So they're saying basically is that c, and this is basically like substitution. You see c there, so they're saying there's c, and you have your t, but they're changing that to 4. Okay, so at that point then you will change, substitute t for 4, so that's minus 4 cubed plus 4.5 by 4 squared plus 54 times 4. So this is the exact same as the function there, except you're substituting t for 4. So in my calculator then, I can put this function in. So minus bracket 4 to be cubed plus 4.5 bracket 4 to be squared plus 54 times bracket 4, which is equal to 224, and that is correct. So it's got 224. The next question then, so you can see here after 4 seconds, we have 224 units. After 0 seconds, or sorry, 0 hours, my mistake, it should be hours. 0 hours is 0 units. 1 hour is 57.5. And just to show you a small shortcut there, you have to complete the table, but what I can do in my original equation, I can just substitute the 4 for a 2. That's my delete button, 2. Delete 2. 118. And you can do it the whole way up. Just change 2 for 3 and so on, up as far as 9, because it's 0 to 9. Okay, so now on to part C. So I've just completed the table from the previous question just by using my function and substitution in each hour into the function. So for example, here I substituted in 2 into 2 cubed plus 4.5 by 2 squared, etc. then I substitute 3 in minus 4, minus 3 cubed plus 4.5 by 3 squared, etc. So I've just completed the table there, so that's what you should have gotten. And the next point then is to complete the graph. Okay, so I went ahead and done this. So if you look here at the graph, it's 0 at 0. 1 is at 57.5, so you go to 1 and you will plot 57, approximately 57.5. That's approximately 57.5. You can't get exactly accurate because of the scale that you're using, and you should get a shape like that. Okay, so part D then says use a graph to estimate each of the following values. In each case, show your work on the graph above. So the amount of the drug in the bloodstream after 3.5 hours. So this is my hours down here. So if I go to 3.5 hours, which is between 3 and 4, I'll draw a line straight up. Let's make sure it's approximately straight. And we go there. Okay, that's approximately halfway. And if I go across then, I'm about approximately 204, 205, around that. Okay, so the next question is how long will it take the drug, how long after taking the drug will the amount of the drug in the bloodstream be 100 units? Okay, so now we were working off time the last time. Now we're working off the y-axis on the units. So I'll go to 100 units, which is about here. Go straight across onto my line. I come straight down then. Remember, make sure it's as straight as can be. So if you look here, that looks like approximately an hour and 45 minutes. Again, just to fill this in from the last one, we said that was 204 units. Okay, for part E, use the drug amount function C of t is equal to minus t cubed plus 4.5 t squared plus 54t to find, in terms of t, the rate at which the drug amount is changing after t hours. When you see words like that, that means you're going to have to get a derivative. Okay, so if C of t is equal to minus t cubed plus 4.5 t squared plus 54t. Okay, I want to differentiate this. So my c dash t, which means differentiation. So I get minus 3t squared plus 9t plus 54. Okay, so when you differentiate, you take one off the indices. So 3 minus 1 will give us 2, 2 minus 1 will give us 1, and t minus 1 will give us 0. In other words, no t there. And you multiply the indices by the constant. In this case, it would be 3 by 1, which is 3, 2 by 4.5 is 9, and 1 by 54, which is 54. So the next question then says, use your answers to part E, part 1, which is this. Find the rate at which the drug amount is changing after 4 hours. Okay, so we're using this here, but we're finding out what it is after 4 hours. Again, this is just simple substitution. So I'll write out my equation like that. And again, I always like to do it like this, just to show exactly what's happening. 4 hours. Okay, so that's the exact same as that, except I'm changing the t for the 4. So that's what I'm doing in this equation then as well. Plus 9, 4, plus 54. Okay, let's put that into my calculator. So minus 3 bracket 4 squared plus 9 bracket 4. Make sure you always close your brackets. 54 equal to 42. Okay, so again, use your answer to part E, part 1. Again, so in other words, use your answer. This is the answer. So we'll use this here. So C. Just watch out for that. The way it's just phrased, just saying use the answer. So just bring the answer down. It makes things easier that way. To find the maximum. Now, when we think of calculus or differentiation, you think of a maximum, okay? So for example, if you have a maximum like that, well, the max is at this point here, and if you draw a tangent to that, the slope of that is equal to 0. Or in other words, your differentiation is equal to 0, okay? And it's the same with your minimum point as well. So at this point here, we'll just want to tidy this up a bit. So I have a minus 3t squared. So if I multiply the whole line by minus 1, I will get 3t squared minus 9t minus 54, and let that equal to 0. Now, I could factorize this, but I've noticed that I can actually make this a bit easier. I can divide by 3. Now, I could have actually divided the whole lot by minus 3, but I would have skipped a step there. So I'll just do it like that. So minus 3t minus 18. Use your calculator again for this. I'm taking shortcuts here, which I shouldn't really, but in the exam you will use your calculator. Okay, so if I want to factorize this again, so you can use your minus b for any factorization of a quadratic equation, which is a trinomial, so it's 3 steps. But here as shortcut, sometimes you can use as well is, if I just get the factors of minus 18, okay, I have to say, well, I have 18, I have minus 1, I have minus 18, I have plus 1, I have 9, I have minus 2, minus 9 plus 2, 6 minus 3, sorry, 6 minus 3, yeah, and minus 6 plus 3. And they're the factors of minus 18. I'm looking for something added together which will give me minus 3. So this will give me 17, minus 17, 7, minus 7, 3, minus 3. I'm looking for the minus 3. So therefore, these added together will give me minus 3. So t minus 6, t plus 3 is equal to 0. So both of these are equal to 0. T minus 6 equal to 0. T is equal to 6. T plus 3 equals 0. T is equal to minus 3. I can't have a negative time, so my answer then is t is equal to 6. Okay, so we're on to the last part of the question. It says use your answer to part I, which is here, to show that the drug amount in the bloodstream is decreasing 7 hours after the drug has been taken. Explain the reason. So this is the answer from part E, part 1. I'll just put in there. And it's just saying basically, you know, is it decreasing 7 hours after the drug has been taken, right? So let's just sub in for 7. And that is minus 3 times 7 squared plus 9 times 7 plus 54. And if you put that into your calculator then, actually have, I can use the original there that I used from the last question. Okay, so minus 3 7 squared plus 9 times 7 plus 54. That's negative. That means it's decreasing. Okay, so that means it's decreasing. Now we've already established from the previous question the max. So in other words, when it's 0, so C6, I don't have to sub this in because I already know that it's equal to 0 at this point. You can do it in your calculator if you want to check. But I know from this question here that t minus 6 is equal to 0, so that means that is 0. Okay, so that's the max. It's decreasing here because it's negative. Okay, and the last one, so we'll just check on 5, for example. So let's check 5. So minus 3 times 5 squared plus 9 times 5 plus 54 is equal to, so I'll just change the 7 for the 5. (24), which is positive, which means it's increasing. So this just measures the slope, this differentiation. It measures the slope at a certain point. So even if you look at this, the graph that we have here, for example, you can actually see yourself. It's increasing from 0 to 6, and at 6 it has reached its max, and then from there on in, at 7, it's actually, even before 7, it's actually decreasing. Okay, so what you can say from there is, so you can say that, if I just use this here, up to 5 hours. Let's check my time unit again, up to 5 hours. Yep. It is increasing. Up to 6, it is at its max. And up to, sorry, I want you to, up to after 7 hours, it is decreasing. Okay, so the last part of the question, it says use your answer to part EI, again using this here. The shown that the drug amount in the bloodstream is decreasing 7 hours after the drug has been taken. Explain your reason. So just to give you maybe an idea of what you're saying, they're saying the drug amount in the bloodstream is decreasing 7 hours after the drug has been taken. So if I look here, you can see, well, it's increasing, and now at 6 hours, it begins to turn. Okay, it has reached its max there. We've already established that. So from 0 to 6 hours, it's increasing, but after 6, it's decreasing. Okay, but to show that in calculus, what we need to do is we need to see if the differentiation of this is decreasing or if it's less than 0. Okay, so at what point? So if it's at 7 hours, okay, so I can see here then, go back to my original equation where it says C dash, so we're using this part 1, so we're saying C dash T is equal to minus T cubed Okay, we're now on to our final question. Question 9. When earthquakes occur under the sea, they can cause large tidal waves called tsunamis. Scientists can estimate the arrival times of tsunamis to nearby countries. The average speed at which a tsunami travels is given by the formula S is equal to the square root of G by D, where S is the speed of the tsunami in meters per second, D is the depth of the ocean in meters at the location where the earthquake occurred, and G is equal to 9.8 meters per second squared. Find S, the speed of a tsunami when an earthquake occurs at a depth of 2,000 meters. Give your answer in meters per second. Okay, so just simple substitution. Just take on your formula there. S is equal to the square root of G by 9, which is equal to G being in this case 9.8, and the depth then is at 2,000. So just make sure I extend my square root like that. So the square root of 9.8 multiplied by 2,000 is equal to 140. And just be mindful as well, it asks for meters per second, so meters per second. Okay, so the next question says, a tsunami has been identified as beginning 400 kilometers from land. The depth of the ocean at the point is 2,000 meters. Find how long it will take the tsunami to reach land. Give your answer correct to the nearest minute. Okay, so it's saying the point how long, right? So that means we're talking about time in this case. And you should know that firstly, our formula is distance, speed, and time. Okay. So if we're looking for time, for example, let's block out our time there like that. That's distance over speed. So time is equal to distance over speed. So distance here is now it is looking for in meters per second. Okay, so because we're talking in terms of the depth is meters. Okay, so if I convert this 400 kilometers, okay, there's 1,000 meters in every kilometer, so that is equal to 400,000 meters. That's 400,000. And our speed then, which we know from the previous question, is 140 meters per second. Okay, so it's important to have the same units. Okay, I couldn't use the kilometers here and meters here, okay, because it would be like for like. So if I do that with my calculator, so 400,000 over 140, change the decimal, it is 2857, so 2,857.1428, and so on. So that's the answers in seconds, okay, because we're dealing with meters per second here. That's meters per second. Now it says to the nearest minute, okay, so let's bear that in mind. So obviously there's 60 seconds in a minute, so if I divide my answer, divide that by 60, I get 47.61 minutes. And the nearest minute then, and because that's a 6 there, that will turn to 48, a round up. If that was 4, 3, 2, 1 or 0, it would stay at 47. Okay, so we're on to part B. It says rearrange the formula to give D in terms of G and S. So S is equal to the square root of G by D. So if I square both sides, that will give me S squared. And if I square this, the square will get rid of the square root sign, which will give G by D. So what I want to do next is get it in terms of D. So in other words, I want D on its own. That's what it means when it says in terms of D. So to get rid of this G, I will divide both sides by G. They will cancel then, and that will be G then. So S squared over G is equal to, because they cancel, D. And that's how you rearrange that. Okay, so last question says, hence or otherwise find the depth of the ocean at the place where an earthquake occurred. If the resultant tsunami had a speed of 55 meters per second, give your answer correct to the nearest meter. Okay, so we're using this formula here. Okay, so I'll just start from the left this time. So D is equal to S squared over G. Okay, and it tells us that the tsunami reached a speed of 55 meters per second, okay, which is the speed. So I can sub that in there. So D is equal to 55 squared, okay, and we also as well have G from the first question, which is 9.8. Okay, so if I just use my calculator for that, so my fraction button, so 55 squared over 9.8 is equal to, change the decimal, 308.67346 and so on. Okay, and it says give your answer correct in the nearest meter. So because this is a 6 there, I'm going to round it up to 309.